Good morning and welcome to the LAPU live stream. We are hosting today by the Digital Learning Solutions team, and my name is Callista Dawson. I am the Learning Experience Design Manager, and today I am joined by our three instructional designers, which are Kenna, Alyssa, and Victoria. And today we will be talking about developing creative assignments using AI technology. So who would like to start off our conversation today? How about Kenna?
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. Using AI is a wonderful tool that we have really tried to integrate into our courses, not only as a tool for us as we're developing different things in our courses, but also as a tool for students to use throughout the course, whether that be in a discussion forum, an assignment, and whether that be a tool or as almost like a companion in the course. We've implemented it in some different things like interviews and just a variety of different ways. So it's been really interesting to try to figure out new ways to do that. And I'm very excited to kick off our chat about it today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Victoria, what are some ways that you've seen AI influence our assignment creation process?
Yeah, definitely. AI, what I've seen is that it sparks a lot of creativity because we have to be first off, before we implement any AI, that we have to be as transparent as possible to the students to let them know what the expectations are and to provide any feedback. But the AI it all depends on how we use it. We can have it as creative as possible for students where they can identify the nuances of the generative AI analysis, or they can identify the success and challenges and responses, because the AI tool is what you put when you prompt it is what you get out of it.
Right. All right. Alyssa, I know you've been playing with AI a lot lately, and you even posted a live stream of yourself using it to build rubrics. So in the terms of assignments, what are some things that you've seen come out of the use of AI?
So AI has a lot of capabilities and a lot of different possibilities depending on how you're using it. I truly see it as a brainstorming tool, or as Kenna said, it's a companion as you're going through the process of trying to even think about an assignment that you would like to have in a course. If you ever feel stuck or don't know what to do, or maybe your conversation is stuck with the person that you're creating an assignment with, artificial intelligence is a great way to help you explain to them some additional tools and ways that a creative assignment can be made. So I really see it as just a brainstorming tool.
Yeah, I'd love to expand on that thought, because I know Kenna and I were working on a course together recently where our subject matter expert kept giving us ideas for assignments that were not super creative and quite honestly could be completed by the AI in a matter of seconds. And so we actually used, I think we used Chat GPT to take the assignment instructions that SME gave us, just put it in there and showed her, like, look how quickly AI can do this assignment. Let's get more creative. Let's come up with something that an AI can't do for the student, right? So in that sense, it's kind of become even a benchmark of, can AI do it by itself? Then we're not being creative enough, right?
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. Do you guys have any other thoughts before we jump in and start using AI and brainstorming right now?
Something that I did want to add to, just on the topic of creative assessments and kind of, I guess, some tips before you go straight to the tool.
Mhm.
I would say definitely keep in mind what your objectives are and what you want to assess, because that will not only affect your prompt, but that will kind of shape the assignment that you get going with. The other thing is also keep in mind your audience and their abilities as well, because I know a lot of students are unfamiliar with AI, or they may not know necessarily the best ways to use it. So you may have to build in some type of helps for your student as well, or even multiple ways to complete the assignment that doesn't include AI, which I know is kind of the basis of creative assessment anyway. But just keep those things in mind before jumping straight to the tool, because I think it'll save you from having to go back and rework things in the end.
Really great points. Thank you for setting those ground rules for us, giving us a nice foundation to jump off of before we go nuts inside of the tool. So, Alyssa, are you going to be sharing your screen with us today?
Yes, I can start.
What tool are we going to use?
I have two pulled up. I have Chat GPT and Bard, and I thought we could start with Chat GPT, but maybe compare it to Bard.
I love that idea. Yeah.
So I'll start sharing. Give me just 1 second to pull this up. You should be seeing Chat GPT pop up any second. So let me know once you see that.
There it is.
Okay, so my first point that I would like to make when using an artificial intelligence tool such as ChatGPT is the prompt is the most important part, but don't get discouraged if it doesn't give you what you were looking for. You just have to kind of adapt and change as you go, and you'll learn how to prompt as you're learning. But as we start, I would like to kind of just give out a prompt, and then we can talk about it and go from there. Does that sound good for everyone?
Yeah.
All right. So the first part of a prompt that I like to use is I prefer to have the tool act as somebody. So in this case, I would like it to be a subject matter expert. I just feel like when you do this, it's able to understand what you're really asking it to do. So I'm going to shorten it to SME, and we can say create some creative assessment ideas for, here, let's fix my spelling really quick. Assessment ideas for an assignment at a university that is covering the topic of, and we can just put, this always pops into my head, so we're going to do disease transmission. And we're just going to search and see what it comes up with, and we can adapt our prompt from here, but I think it's fun to just watch it load, and we'll see what happens. All right.
I have to say, I love that it just automatically gives you 10. Like, it's a nice round number.
Mm-hmm.
It's always very satisfying.
So we have simulations, board games, campaign proposals, investigation report, transmission podcast, infographics, workshops, artistic expressions, and there's a lot of different options in here. So right off the bat, it didn't give us a paper, and I think that's what's so great about the options that it gave, is it didn't say write a paper on disease transmission.
Yeah, you gave it that parameter of being creative, and it immediately understood that you didn't want to assign a paper. Mm-hmm. Isn't that funny? I would like to add too, like the thought of writing a research paper. In our team, we talk a lot about grandma's ham, and that's a concept of excuse me, where you do something the way it's always been done simply because that's the way it's always been done. And we're in a place now with higher education and our demographic being 100% online, and we're striving to be the most mobile university. Those are differentiators that we have to really embrace and take into consideration. And so we can't expect someone who's learning on the go on their phone to be able to sit down and write a 10-page research paper. So that's a big challenge that we have to face. So as we get into these things, I also want to make sure we compare each of those suggestions to what you would be getting out of a research paper. So the reason research papers have been the standard is because it allows a faculty member to easily assess specific things, right? So are we capable of getting those same specific things that we would get from a research paper by doing these alternative, more creative assessments? So I'd love to hear you guys talk through that.
Yeah, we definitely can.
I'm going to pull the list back up though so we can see and talk through them. Yeah, there you go.
If you want me to scroll down, just let me know and I can.
Sure. Okay, well, why don't you start with the simulation-based learning? Obviously, that's a heavier lift on the design side, but what are the benefits of going with a simulation?
I think simulations can be really helpful for students, especially if they are going into a practical field, and if the simulation itself provides real world experience, because it really does fall to the student to make decisions and see the impact of those decisions. In this case, somebody in public health, which I'm sure Alyssa can talk a little bit more about, but they would actually be able to see, okay, the impact of this decision that I'm making on people, on my community, on an individual person, just depending on what the simulation entails. But I think that can be really challenging, but also eye-opening for students as well. But again, like I said, I think it really does come back to whatever the objective is and what you are trying to assess for them. So depending on what the simulation covers, it could be anything from a public health standpoint, as far as decision making, ethical reasoning, critical thinking, problem solving, all those wonderful things that kind of go hand in hand with it.
Yeah, I agree with the simulations. I see so much benefit in them, especially in any type of health field, because anyone can write a paper on a topic, but being able to go into the real world and act out certain scenarios, or not even act out, you're actually performing these certain scenarios in real life, in your real life jobs. When you are in school and you're told to write a paper about it, that's one thing. But if we can provide simulations to prepare students for the future, I think it's really beneficial.
One thing this made me, sorry, my voice is starting to go. One thing this made me think about, because we've been having a lot of conversations recently about using AI as a role-playing device. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the budget or time investment to build your own simulation, or one doesn't already exist that you could just leverage in your course, you could even design an assignment around using AI as your patient in this case, or if it's a leadership course, you could tell the student to use AI to act like their employer, or they could be the employer talking to a staff member. There's a lot of different things you could try in terms of role play. And the way you write the assignment could be the prompts that you want them to use or to think about, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. that could be a nice spin even on this simulation idea.
I think we can expand on that too, and we can kind of show how to prompt AI in that way if you guys want to kind of pivot in that direction for now.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to use the same prompts, the same chat. I'm not going to switch it out. But because we're talking about how you can use AI and prompt it and encourage students to use a prompt, I think we should try it out and just see what happens. So we can say, create a role-playing scenario for students to understand how diseases are transmitted. And again, I haven't tried this out, so I'm not sure what's going to happen, but that's kind of the fun of AI is you're going to prompt it and then adapt and change as we go. But already it's providing, just from what I can see, a pretty good general background.
You know, it looks to me like it's creating something that you would do in a in-person classroom setting, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But you might even try for, say, our student, prompting it to create a role-playing scenario where the AI itself is the person that they're interacting with. See if it might understand what you're asking it to do.
I'm gonna maybe change my prompt to for an online student. So create a role-playing scenario for an online student to, let's say, interview the AI tool to help understand how diseases are transmitted. We'll see what it comes up with. So from my point of view, it's a little bit too general. And I think we could make it a little more specific and have it actually act as that person. So as we said earlier, act as the SME. I think we should maybe change it to act as the director of a public health department, and role play a scenario where a student is interviewing the director using these questions. And I've kind of done something similar, which is why I'm asking it to do certain questions, because it is pretty cool how it will play out. So let me just correct my spelling. So we can say, what is your passions regarding public health? We'll just put 2 questions so we can be quick. And how can diseases be stopped from spreading? And we will see if it creates an interview type of role play scenario for a student.
That's so funny. It's actually trying to be the student too. You know, while it's generating, one thing I noticed with the previous prompt is that that works really well for drafting instructions.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the instructions that we would then put into the course, you know, once we fine-tuned it. And then now you're kind of going into the actual, this is what we would be asking students to do, and this is what we would hope the AI would do in response. So we're getting to see both sides of it right now, which is cool.
Yeah, so if I was building an assignment and I wanted students to use an AI tool and act out an interview, in the assignment instructions, I would put use this prompt and see what it comes up with for the students. So as you're developing an assignment, I would practice and create different prompts to get what you're looking out of it, and then put that into your assignment for students to try out themselves as well.
The other side to think through as well is what would we expect the student to submit as their assignment? So what are they pulling out and how are they formatting it to give to their teacher? Would it be just a written document, or could they even take the creativity a step further by putting it into some sort of presentation, maybe using a tool like Canva? There's multiple layers of creativity that we could put on top of it.
Yeah, so I am working on something similar right now, and the creative assignment that we are doing is they're going to take this interview, and it's for like a charity, let's say, and they're going to create different social media posts that they could use based off of the interview and what that person they interviewed is needing. So that's one way you could do it, is just take the interview and build something out of it that's going to help whatever the interview person needed.
That sounds cool. Like a very fun assignment. Were there any other creative ideas on that initial list that you guys wanted to brainstorm around and talk through? I know we also said we could look at Bard too, but let's just see what Chat GPT did first.
I like how the second one mentioned a board game, create a board game. Because there has been so many studies showing that games incorporated with learning strikes up creativity, and it also helps students absorb the material faster. And I guess it goes back, if you're having fun, you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point. I think my follow-up question to that would be if we had some sort of board game for them to play. Obviously, we're online, so the board game would probably still have to be a virtual board game. But how would we implement it, and how would we be able to assess that they have learned the skills that we need them to learn?
Yeah, for online, that would have to go back to the team and the tools available to the team to create. You can create a virtual board game through either tools such as Captivate, and there's others such Articulate. You can make some tools, but that's not always readily available. And you can even create an escape pod through just Google Sheets can also help you create some games too. That one also goes back to the discretion of how much time and tools are available at hand for. But it is a fun thought if you have the time and means for a board game.
I do think it's important to mention here too that a big reason why, well, at least from my experience, I think a big reason why research papers have become and stayed the norm is because it's less of a heavy lift on the development end. Obviously, these types of things were scenarios and board games. There's a lot more time investment. But I would also argue that it's worth it because the student experience is so much better.
I agree.
It just goes back to we tend to teach how we learn. And research papers have been the norm and the traditions for generations of learning.
Going back to your point, Callista, about it being a heavier load to create these games, I think what would be a fun assessment is having the student create a game rather than us creating it. And it doesn't need to necessarily be virtual. They could make like a board game with different materials that they have in their house and take a picture of it, kind of like as if it was a lab, and submit their different pictures of how they created their game board from scratch. I've done assignments like that when I was at school, and I think it's a fun, engaging way that I would prefer to have rather than a paper. So that's another option.
That was great. Not on this though, because it comes to mind because I know another on the list is a podcast that can create a video or podcast of themselves demonstrating that their creativity and the product. So there goes back to tying on how do the instructors know the students are learning. They created the game, we can see that through the video, and they can talk about it as we can hear them through the.
All right, so we are at the 25-minute mark, and we have a question from the audience, which says, what do you do if the results don't really fit the topic? And that I think speaks to what we're doing in the AI tool. So do you guys have any thoughts around that? I know, Alyssa, you kind of touched on it a little bit with the rewriting of the prompt, but what are some specific thoughts that come into your mind as you are looking at those results?
So for me, when I was doing the interview AI prompts a few minutes ago, I was imagining the interview that we ended up with the last time, where it was interviewer, student, but we didn't get that at first. So for me, I just reword the prompts, and I have to I try to tell it to be a certain person. And I feel like that is the easiest way to get to where I want to go. But it's a lot of trial and error, it's a lot of practice. And I would just encourage you to keep trying and keep practicing and change your prompt a little bit. And eventually you will get it. It just takes it's just a learning curve, to be honest.
Yeah, I've had the same experience using it for writing scripts. So I will generally use it in my brainstorming for script writing for the media that we design. And sometimes when you give it a prompt, it'll go all the way to like actually giving you time codes on, this is how long this section should be, and here's the visuals you should include for this. And sometimes I don't want all of that. Sometimes I really just want some general ideas to get my creativity flowing. And so I've had to even tell it, like, get rid of all the time code stamps, get rid of all the imagery suggestions. Although sometimes they're really good imagery suggestions, especially on more abstract topics. So you really do have to tell it very specifically what it is you're looking for, because it can't read your mind, but it can respond very well to a good written prompt.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is a whole lot of trial and error and just telling it what you want, telling it how you want it to respond, even as far as, oh, I want it in a friendly tone or in a serious tone, or kind of how you want it to generate your language for you. And then another tip is, if you're really not getting what you want, try a different tool maybe. There's a ton out there, and it seems like there are always new ones coming up. So you can even go that far if you just need something fresh.
We do have another question that I think is worth talking about. With the incorporation of AI, how are you balancing the use of it when collaborating with a SME? And I'd love to hear how you are using it in tandem with a SME, but I know we've also played with it a little bit without the accompaniment of an actual SME. So I'd like to hear both stories. Who would like to go first?
I can share first. So my most recent example is I was working on assignments, and the SME was creating instructions for a paper. So what I did was I created an interview style, like we just did, through 2 different AI tools, and I linked them to the assignment page to show the SME what AI can do. And he loved it. So we adapted, and now we're making the assignment where they get to have an interview process just like we did, to create a fun assignment. So I think the best way is to try it out yourself and share what you're doing, just to show the SMEs what's possible.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great point. How about Kenna or Vic? Have you had any experiences like that you'd like to share?
For that, my approach, sorry, going back what you said, Alyssa, is share with the SME, be open and engage in the conversations to garner all their thoughts as well. And my approach I like to do is a backwards design, where we want what the deliverable is, what we picture students will create, and we take that and go backwards and design the process on how to get to creating that specific assessment. So for that, one we did was we did a more of a brain scan for a psychology course we did, where instead of just having the students list the parts of a brain, my team and the wonderful ID designer for our team, we went back and designed what product is it going to look like, and how do we incorporate all the sections of the AI tool for the students to achieve for that.
That's awesome. I've had a range of experiences with it, and I really think it kind of depends on how comfortable the SME is with AI in general. Some SMEs really are not comfortable with using it themselves or even allowing students to use it for assignments. So part of it is just opening up those doors and really having them kind of investigate and see for themselves how AI is used in that particular field. I think that is a good way to get them on board a little bit. And then, like Callista mentioned before, it is a good benchmark as well to check our assignments and make sure that they do have a creative level where AI can't complete the assignment for the student. But I really do think it's a great tool. When SMEs are a little more hesitant, I think there are ways to get them on board. And sometimes I think by actually showing them how it can be used or having them use it themselves, they are able and more willing to incorporate them into assignments, or even we've had different discussion forums about AI and its ethical use cases and just different things like that for the student to consider. So I think it depends on not only the SME, but also your goal with it as well.
All right. I know we could talk about this all day, but we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here, and maybe we'll do a part 2 on this, since we didn't get to go into the BARD demo. So maybe we'll do a BARD specific one another day, because I definitely think it's worth doing to see the difference between the tools. So before we wrap it up entirely, I'd like to mention that we have a new program available. If you could show the slide, we have a Master's of Science in Instructional Design and Technology. It is our first competency-based, self-paced program, and the suggested pace for this program is about 16 months, which would cost you $10,000, which is very affordable, and we're very excited to be able to offer that. And so if you or someone you know would be interested in this program, you can scan that QR code to go to our website and get more information. You can also send an email directly to us at msidt@lapu.edu, and that'll get you in touch directly with our AD, George Hanshaw. He would love to talk to you and explore your interest in our program. And that's our big takeaway for today. We look forward to talking to you more about AI and about creativity and course design. Thank you so much for attending today and for listening to everything we've had to share with you. But yeah, that was super fun. Thanks, ladies, for joining us today. And this is what learning feels like.